The story of Joseph and his brothers. Imagine being sold by your own brothers. They turn against you, lie to your father, and leave you in a foreign land, all because they are jealous of you. This is what happened to Joseph, a young boy who went from being his father's favorite to being left alone in a pit. But his story didn't end there. It became one of the greatest stories of forgiveness, faith, and hope. Hi, thank you for watching. Please kindly like the post and subscribe to the channel. Joseph was the youngest son of Jacob, and Jacob loved him more than all his other sons. He made him a beautiful coat with many colors, which made his brothers angry. They hated Joseph because their father showed him so much love. Joseph didn't help matters either. He would tell his brothers about his dreams, where he saw them bowing down to him. This only made them hate him more. One day, when Joseph was about 17 years old, his father sent him to check on his brothers, who were out in the fields taking care of the sheep. As Joseph walked toward them, his brothers saw him coming from a distance, and their anger grew. They couldn't stand him anymore. They decided to get rid of him once and for all. "Here comes that dreamer," they sneered. "Let's throw him into a pit and leave him there. We'll say he was eaten by a wild animal." The brothers grabbed Joseph and ripped off his colorful coat. They threw him into a deep pit, and there he sat, alone and scared. While Joseph was in the pit, his brothers sat down to eat their meal. They didn't seem to care about what they had just done. Suddenly, Judah, one of the brothers, had an idea. "What will we gain if we kill him and hide his blood? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites, who are traveling to Egypt. That way, we won't have his blood on our hands." So, they sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. As the traders took Joseph away, his brothers took his coat, dipped it in goat's blood, and returned it to their father Jacob. They showed it to him and said, "We found this coat. Is it Joseph's?" Jacob took one look at the coat and believed the lie. He was heartbroken. He thought his beloved son had been killed by a wild animal. He tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for Joseph many days. His grief was so deep that he refused to be comforted. Meanwhile, Joseph was taken to Egypt and sold to an important man named Potiphar, who was the captain of Pharaoh's guard. Joseph worked hard for Potiphar, and God was with him. Everything Joseph did turned out well. Potiphar saw how successful Joseph was and put him in charge of his entire household. But trouble soon came. Potiphar's wife took an interest in Joseph and tried to get him to do something wrong. She wanted him to lie with her, but Joseph refused. He said, "How can I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" Potiphar's wife became angry. She grabbed Joseph's coat, and when he ran away from her, she falsely accused him of trying to hurt her. Potiphar was furious when he heard the lie, and he had Joseph thrown into prison. Even in prison, Joseph didn't give up. He kept his faith in God, and soon the jailer noticed that everything Joseph did was successful. The jailer put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners. While in prison, Joseph met two men who had worked for Pharaoh, the cupbearer and the baker. Both of them had dreams one night, and Joseph, with God's help, interpreted their dreams. To the cupbearer, Joseph said, "In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up and give you back your job." To the baker, Joseph said, "In 3 days, Pharaoh will have you hanged." And just as Joseph had said, the cupbearer was restored to his position, and the baker was executed. Before the cupbearer left, Joseph asked him, "Please remember me and help me get out of here when things go well for you." But the cupbearer forgot about Joseph and left him in prison for 2 more years. One day, Pharaoh had 2 troubling dreams. In one, he saw 7 healthy cows being eaten by 7 skinny cows. In the other, he saw 7 good ears of corn being swallowed by 7 withered ears. Pharaoh asked all the wise men in Egypt to explain the dreams, but no one could. At that moment, the cupbearer remembered Joseph. He told Pharaoh about the time Joseph had correctly interpreted his and the baker's dreams. Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and when Joseph arrived, Pharaoh told him about the dreams. Joseph said, "Both dreams mean the same thing. 7 years of plenty will come, followed by 7 years of famine. You need to store up food during the good years, so that Egypt will survive the bad years." Pharaoh was amazed by Joseph's wisdom. He said, "Since God has shown you all this, I'm putting you in charge of everything. Only I will be greater than you." Joseph was given a signet ring, fine clothes, and a gold chain. He was made second in command over all Egypt. Joseph went to work preparing for the famine. He stored up grain in huge amounts, and when the famine came, Egypt had plenty of food. People from all over the world came to Egypt to buy grain. One day, Joseph's brothers came to Egypt to buy food. They didn't recognize Joseph, but Joseph recognized them. He decided to test them. He accused them of being spies and demanded that they bring their youngest brother, Benjamin, to prove that they were telling the truth. The brothers went back to their father and told him what had happened. They begged him to let Benjamin go with them, and Jacob finally agreed. When they returned to Egypt with Benjamin, Joseph invited them to a meal at his house. He treated them kindly, but he still wanted to test them. Joseph had a silver cup hidden in Benjamin's bag. He accused them of stealing it and threatened to keep Benjamin as a servant. The brothers begged Joseph to let Benjamin go, promising that they would stay in his place. Finally, Joseph couldn't hold back anymore. He sent everyone out of the room except his brothers. "I am Joseph," he said. "Is my father still alive?" The brothers were shocked. They were terrified that Joseph would take revenge on them for all the wrong they had done to him. But Joseph said to them, "Don't be afraid. God sent me here to save lives. There have been 2 years of famine, and there are 5 more years to come. You didn't send me here. God did." Joseph forgave his brothers, and he promised to provide for them and their families during the famine. He sent them back to bring their father Jacob and all their families to Egypt, where they would be safe. When Jacob saw that Joseph was alive, he was overwhelmed with joy. He and his family moved to Egypt and settled in a land called Goshen, where they lived in peace and plenty. Joseph's story is a powerful reminder that even when things seem bad, God is still in control. Joseph was betrayed, sold as a slave, thrown into prison and forgotten, but God had a plan for him. In the end, Joseph was able to forgive his brothers, and God used him to save many lives. His story shows us the power of faith, forgiveness, and trusting that God is always with us, no matter what happens. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.